A resolution concerning the proposed annexation of parcels 47, 48, 80, 118, 120, 139, 140, and 247 of Tax Map 34, located on Easton Point, together with portions of the public road right-of-way known as Port Street and portions of the Tredeavon River by the town of Easton, Maryland, the town, consisting of approximately 6.533 acres of land, more or less, the property, finding that the proposed rezoning from the county's existing limited industrial LI zone to the town's proposed general commercial CG zone will result in substantially different uses and substantially higher density, exceeding 50%, than could be granted for proposed development under existing county zoning, and waiving the 5-year hold in accordance with local government article section 4-416 Maryland Annotated Code.
Sharon Bainenberg and Lynn Thomas on behalf of the town of Easton. You've received a letter from the mayor and Don Richardson, and hopefully that has addressed some of the questions that you had. We're certainly happy to answer any additional questions that you have. The town is supportive of the zoning waiver, and we hope that you will grant this. We think this will be a great jump start to the redevelopment of Easton Point, which will benefit both the town and the county. Economic development, we have a lot of private property owners that are willing to invest in this area and make some improvements. And obviously they want some certainty in terms of what zoning options they have available to them before they're willing to make that investment. And so we hope that you will support that. I don't know if you're making...
Not much. Between Mary Kay's introduction and what Sharon just added, I don't have a lot to add. I would say in difference to some previous similar requests when we've been before you for zoning waivers, I don't think the issue of whether the zoning is different is an issue this time. We concede that is in fact different, and I don't think that we actually have a zoning classification that wouldn't be substantially different from either the existing zoning or what we envision happening out there. CG, quite honestly, is not the most ideal match for our vision of the property, but I think we envision the property being developed in one or a series of planned unit developments, and to that end, that is probably the best base zoning to allow. It's not perfect. Probably the best solution in my mind is a zoning that does not yet exist, that hopefully results from the small area plan. Two different issues. We have folks at the table now who want to proceed with annexation, and we have a current comprehensive plan and a current set of zoning rules that we need to evaluate it again. So that's what we're doing.
So what he's referring to is that the town comprehensive plan refers to this area as a mixed-use area. We don't really have a mixed-use zoning district, so the commercial is the closest thing to that. If, as a result of the small area plan, we create a mixed-use zoning district, and it's within that 5-year time period, we have to come back to you to apply that to these properties. So there would be an additional avenue to come back to you if that happens.
Can I ask just a quick question about that? Is it possible to do that first? I mean, because you're saying it's not a perfect fit. I agree, it's not. It's too big. I mean, we're going to have a whole public hearing, but I'm just curious if that could come first.
Well, some of the properties are not looking to do a mixed use, so that's more what we envision for the entire area. But for instance, one of the properties wants to do a restaurant. The CG would allow them to do that. They don't need to wait for a mixed use zoning district, and they don't want to wait. So since as long as I've been working with the town, which is about 18 years, there have been various meetings over the years trying to get the property owners at Easton Point, assemble a group of them to come in and annex at one time. And no one was ever willing to pay the cost that would be involved to do that, or at least not a large enough group to make it financially viable to do that. And so now we finally have a group that's willing to do that. And granted, there's a lot more of Easton Point and a lot of other properties that will be affected in the future, but we'd like to get this jump started and the ball rolling with the property owners that are willing now and will want to make this investment now. Because as you know from your comprehensive plan process, it could take a long time until the small area plan is finished, and then on top of that, to create a new zoning district. That process alone could take a very, very long time, and then to have to come back through the annexation after that. So these property owners want to make an investment now, and they don't need mixed-use zoning to do some things that they might want to do. And it's still consistent with the mixed-use idea, it's just property by property, they don't need it.
So we are one of the 4 applicants requesting annexation into the town of Easton, and it would be under the immediate zoning reclassification of general commercial. That's what we're requesting. And to also be able to access Easton's public utility infrastructure. I'm really here to kind of tell a story, and it's the story of our family, and we are the property owners that were just mentioned as far as the residential use, and having had that for actually 3 generations. We are 3 generations of Talbot County residents. So when our mom, Ann Webb, passed away in 2011, we inherited the 6-unit farmhouse on Easton Point at 761 Port Street. Mom actually had inherited the property 2 years before, in 2009, when our father, Edward Webb, died. The property had a dysfunctional septic system and undrinkable water at that time. And ultimately, Mom wrote a letter to the tenants saying she could no longer afford the expenses associated with the property. And these expenses included emptying the septic tanks on a weekly basis, as well as delivering bottled drinking water. And this was actually an arduous task that my dad performed for at least 5 years before he died. So ultimately, she boarded up that old farmhouse, and it still sits empty today, gathering cobwebs. So our father couldn't be more proud of his hometown of Easton, Maryland, and thought that there was no better place to live than Talbot County, and was a lifelong resident. His father and our grandfather, Jesse Webb, was a respected businessman and a vast property owner in Talbot County. And he loved and raised 4 sons, Edward, Gregory, Dale, and Warren, and actually helped each of them become investment property owners too. My father, or our father, and his brother Gregory would come to own multiple properties along Port Street and throughout the town of Easton, providing housing to many families. I'm actually proud that some of my earliest memories started on Port Street, where we all once lived. Dad made his living there with rental housing.
Finish your thought.
Okay, thank you. With rental housing, he also owned the Starlight Bar and Grill that I'm sure only a few of you still remember. In 2006, he sold all of his remaining properties with the exception of 761 Port Street. He always knew its potential and felt Easton Point was destined to be so much more than it had become. He passed away in 2009 without getting to see this day, but he never gave up on the property, even though the septic system gave up on him. So I'm extremely proud of my family. I frequently tell all who will listen about how my family has a street named after them in St. Michael's called Webb Lane, and that my grandfather once owned the house now used as the Maritime Museum gift shop in St. Michael's, right near the Crab Claw. And I just actually learned yesterday that our uncle, Gregory, has donated a 30-unit building that he owned to the town of Easton. So, and that's actually located at 36 West Street. And that means that Jason and I have big shoes to fill. So, and we want to. We're excited about that opportunity and want to be able to invest in 761 Port Street and kind of bring it to the vision that has been there for generations before us.
Eileen Demir, speaking on behalf of the Talbot Preservation Alliance. You received this morning, I believe, by electronic transfer, a letter stating our position, and I am here merely to recap that just as briefly as I possibly can for the benefit of other people who haven't seen that letter. As noted in the letter, TPA is wholeheartedly in favor of the annexation application, but believes it would be a serious mistake if the county council were to waive its 5-year hold on the rezoning of those parcels. By relinquishing the responsibility to participate in approval of uses for those parcels for that 5-year period, the council would squander the only remaining means of ensuring that Port Street ultimately will be developed consistently with an agreed-upon version of the small area plan now under review. The Easton Town Council is poised to abandon all of the legal leverage it has to guide future development of Port Street by annexing those parcels without terms in a binding annexation agreement that would ensure that the promised intentions of the annexation parcel owners will be put into effect post-annexation. As soon as those parcels are annexed with the proposed general commercial town zoning in place and public water and sewer extended, the commercial value of the subject parcels will soar, as will their attractiveness to outside investors, with the financial ability and new incentive to exploit that value. And there were some examples given in the letter, which if you've had a chance to review it, I won't go over them right now and take up too much more time. Although it has the clear legal authority to do so, the Easton Council has not to this point, to my knowledge, exhibited any interest in imposing controls on use of the annexation parcels that would preclude development that happens to be mentioned in the letter that was sent to you, as well as the many other wide-ranging commercial uses in the general commercial zone. As the council considers pending Resolution 234, it should be acknowledged that the so-called 5-year hold actually is a misnomer. Nothing would impede this council, if it elects not to waive its 5-year oversight, to relinquish such control much sooner than 5 years from now. The whole point of leaving the hold in place is to ensure that the properties will be developed as has been represented and consistently with the long-term interest in unified redevelopment of Port Street. If a property owner wants to move forward immediately with development post-annexation, he or she need only submit to the council an agreed concept plan for what will be developed and how, and the council would have the authority then to immediately relinquish its hold on the parcel. Without that hold in place, and if the town council does not adopt some constraining provisions in an enforceable annexation agreement, after annexation, the properties could be developed in any manner consistent with the wide-ranging and extensive commercial uses, some quite intense, under Easton's general commercial zoning. This would be contrary to the interests of planned development, to the interests of other property owners along Port Street, and of course to the interests of the citizens of Talbot County. So we urge the County Council not to waive its right to continue to supervise development along Port Street for a period of up to 5 years. By declining to waive its 5-year hold authority, you give that up. This may be the only means of ensuring, at least for 5 years, that redevelopment of Port Street remains consistent with the vision of so many who have been working on the Port Street small area plan. Thank you.
My name is Jane Hockey, and my husband John Schroeder, and we're the owners, we're married, and we are the owners of the boathouse at Easton Point on Port Street. It's the last property before the Easton Point Marina on Port Street on the right-hand side. And I just wanted to make a few points. I'll try and keep it quick, because I know he wants to say a few things. By way of background, I'm a faculty member on the Horn Point campus, University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. I've been there more than 20 years, and I am, by my own personal vocation, an environmentalist. I am all about preserving green space and improving the environment while ensuring economic sustainability for the citizens. We bought this property about 12 years ago. It was a wreck. It had been basically abandoned for a couple decades, and we had visions of resurrecting it in some form of a small marina in conjunction with the Easton Point Marina that was functioning. And Through a couple different attempts over the years, working with the county under the light industrial zoning, we tried to make small improvements to the property under that zoning, and were consistently turned away. And at the last meeting with the planning staff, I was told point blank, I need to go to the town and be annexed, that there was nothing the county could do for me for my property. We have managed to keep the property going as a business, a small business. We are both local folks, been here 30 years, but we are consistently running into a block with the county. So we took the advice of the county planning staff, and we are applying for annexation. We have a vision that we started circulating about 3 or 4 years ago in the county at various town public meetings. Both of us would like to see Easton Point, not just our property, but Easton Point as a whole, developed for the, or I should say revitalized or redeveloped, because it is all developed property already and has been for a couple hundred years, into an area that is a treasure for the whole community, not just the town, but the county as well as the visitors that bring in tourism revenue and hopefully settle here. We have visions of green spaces, we have visions of stormwater control, we have visions of getting off the septics and onto town utilities to stop the pollution of the Tredevan. We have lots of forward-thinking, progressive ideas to make Easton Point the gem that it should be for all of us.
I want to address this letter from TPA. I find it offensive, and I find it chicken little-ish. I think it smacks of fear-mongering, and what we worked very hard for over 4 years is to get this group together to come to the mayor and break this logjam of what Easton Point has been languishing for decades. There's letters in the Star Democrat going back to 1940 about what we can do with Easton Point. So now we've assembled a group of people, we have support, we work with Easton about the master plan, or the small area plan, and we're all consistent in what that master plan will do. I don't know about a Wawa coming there. I think that's bad math. I don't think that would ever be a Wawa. The citizens that are involved in this, Tim Miller has been here his whole life. I've been here 35 years. The Webbs, you heard their story. We're all dedicated to making Easton Point a vibrant waterfront that will work for the community and the citizens. The first thing I did was build a boardwalk on my property. And my vision is that we continue that boardwalk around the waterfront, and that we attract boaters to Easton, and of course the revenue would be great for Talbot County. I don't think there's anything wrong with making property values go up. I think that is ridiculous statement. If millionaires come here and offer a lot of money to us, great. However, we should have in place some form of regulating what goes down there. And I leave it to you and the town to work that out. I don't know the mechanism, but I know there's got to be, between the lawyers that we have here, we got a lot of them, we couldn't figure out a way that we could do what we want to do. There's a beer plan, there's a great restaurant. There was a terrible restaurant down there, and we fought hard to get it out of there. It was loud, it was obnoxious, and the people that have property down there pushed them out. So it's almost a self-governing situation. By being a member of this community, I want to see Easton Point a really great place.
Ryan Showalter, I'm appearing tonight on behalf of the annexation petitioners. And one of the topics that we heard when the resolution was introduced was a question or concern about the waterfront restaurant in particular that's proposed for the Easton Point Marina parcel, and concerns about parking, whether that could be parked without impacting the county boat ramp parking spaces. So I have tonight, I'm going to provide you with just a conceptual level site plan, but what it demonstrates is that Easton has parking standards for restaurants that are double the parking standards in the county. The county requires 1 space per 100 square feet. Easton requires 1 parking space per 50 square feet. And this site plan, which is conceptual, but works and has turning radiuses that function, provides 47 off-site parking spaces, which accommodates an approximately 1,800 square foot addition to the existing building. So I'm going to submit that to you just so you have it for the record. The second thing I'd like to provide to you, there was discussion about the context of this annexation and whether a decision on the zoning waiver might commit the county to changes at Easton Point as a whole, or commit to the county to a small area plan that the county hasn't studied yet. And I want to make sure that your decision's made in the appropriate context. So I have an excerpt of the small area plan with the annexation area highlighted, and I'll provide to you, but I think you'll see when you look at it that approximately half of the area being annexed is the right-of-way at Port Street, and we otherwise have 4 property owners who are relatively small in footprint and don't in any way bind the county to a small area plan that the town hasn't yet adopted. So I will submit that also for the record. And I think the most important thing to focus the discussion on is that the analysis of what you're waiving, what this question really is. So you have a limited industrial zoning district, and the town has a general commercial district. And if you look at the county staff report, Mary Kay, I think, did a great job in her background section of comparing and contrasting those two districts. And so the two districts that exist, in many cases, have uses that are permitted in both. Those are not identified in the table. So there are lots of uses that I'm not going to mention, but they're uses that are not provided in the table because they're permitted in both districts. What is listed in the table on the left side are the uses that are currently permitted at Easton Point and not permitted in the town zoning district. And on the right-hand side are the uses permitted in the town's district that we're requesting you approve and not currently permitted by the county. And I would ask you, as I run through the list really quickly, to think about which one you think is more appropriate for a redeveloped, master-planned Easton Point. So in the county, you currently permit, and the town would not permit, compounding industries, flammable liquid storage, food packaging and processing, grain processing and storage, junkyards, manufacturing, monument stone production, ports, pump station for gas and oil pipelines, recycling processing centers, sawmills, scrap metal processing, septage treatment facilities, sexually oriented business, solid waste transfer stations, trucking terminals, and wastewater treatment. Those are uses that are permitted today and won't be permitted in the future. The uses that the town general commercial district permits that aren't currently permitted by the county include bed and breakfast, home occupations, homeless shelter, retail uses, bakers, banks, commercial kennels, commercial parking lots or garages, farmers markets, hotels, medical services, restaurants, winery, houses of worship, nursing home and retirement communities, and a visitor center. Those are the differing uses. So there was a question about residential uses. Residential uses are not permitted by right in the GC district. So if someone proposes a residential use before the town adopts a mixed-use district, that would have to come back to you for a zoning waiver on a PUD application. It would be a site plan-specific application, which you could review or approve as you see fit. But when you think about what you're waiving, I think the question is the list of county uses that are permitted today appropriate for investment, redevelopment, and the vision of Port Street, or the list of uses that the town permits more appropriate? And I would submit to you, there are already 2 gas stations at the end of Port Street. The suggestion that Wawa or Royal Farms might find it appropriate to invest at the end of a dead-end street that has no transient traffic is, I think, not appropriate.
My name is Frank Waller. 24 years ago, my wife and I moved to Royal Oak, a suburb of Easton, and we moved down from New England. After coming here, we came here because it's a great place to go boating. And while we have been here for many years, while we were still in our youth, we would head down the waterway on a small boat, 30-footer, down to Florida. And along the way, every night we had to stop in a different spot. At first, when we made the trip, there were many little towns along the waterway that you wouldn't stop in again. They were little places with fish processing plants and various warehouses and things along a beautiful strip of waterfront. Well, over the years, we saw that the places we didn't want to stop in had changed. They became beautiful little towns where you could stop, spend the night, have a nice meal ashore, wander around, feel what it's like to be on the land again. And we always marveled at it. Gosh, all these little places seem to have a lot of foresight. The big cities were doing it, but it's not as charming to stop in downtown Baltimore, although they've made a beautiful waterfront there. There's just too much city to enjoy it. But when we first went down to the waterfront of Easton, we were astonished that it was there, and more astonished that it was one of the ugly places. We wouldn't stop here. It was wonderful to, I had known John for many years through boating, and when I heard he bought property there, I was thinking, wow, maybe something's going to happen here. John's a guy who could do it. Well, talking to him, I could see he had wonderful plans, that this could be like those places that it's very attractive to stop at. And certainly around here, every weekend, there are boats around here that have come from Baltimore, from Annapolis, from up and down the coast, because they want to see what the Chesapeake Bay has to offer and are very happy to go up a waterway and around and find a neat place to go ashore and eat and just relax. Well, I hope that this can happen here. When I read that 5-year hold, my God, what investor is going to come in and commit to a big investment when he's facing a 5-year hold? The thing, it seems to me the thing has to be done as a whole, and it has to be done soon, because time is passing. And if you're going to attract the boating public, you have to have a good spot for them to pull into, attractive, good facilities. So that's all I want to say. I hope I haven't wasted all of your time here.
My name is Tim Miller. I am a principal owner of 930 Port Street that I own with my brother. 930 Port Street Incorporated is the name of the entity, and I own 941 Port Street with my wife Amy, so I guess I represent a group. Like Maria, I sort of grew up down on Easton Point. My family operated a business down there dating back to the mid-1940s when J. McKinney Willis sold my grandfather a piece of property down there and helped him get started in the oil business. And yeah, sort of emotionally attached to the property as well as my brother. And yeah, we're excited about all of this, but we've seen a lot of this before too. One of my first memories of Easton Point was going to the old, we call it the plant because it was an oil plant terminal, and there was a water fountain inside the office there, so go up there and take a sip of water from the water fountain, and, oh, you can't drink the water, it's terrible, and it's like that, the whole place, it's awful, it smells, it's just, there's nothing you can do with it. You know, we always had a Pearson's porta potty outside the office there. We had, you know, facilities and bathrooms and septics, but yeah, we always had a porta potty. We always had bottled water. It just didn't work. You know, it's not a good situation. So you know, my plan to do what we're doing, potable water, being able to flush the toilet with authority. You know, you've heard mention of a brew pub. like a lot of this Easton Point stuff, there's a lot of misinformation, but what I would like to do, the pipe dream is to have a production brewery, possibly a tasting room, on our property. That's what our plan is. 941 Port Street is a residential rental. A good friend of the family lives there. Continue to rent it to him as his house. So just to put that to rest. My tenant at 930 Port Street is a nice, healthy business in there. It's kind of a high-tech firm. They do a lot of environmental testing, water testing, high-tech equipment. And he installed a water filtration system to clean the water up. He needs a certain pH balance, et cetera, for the water. A nice system he improved the property with. He's got to change the filters in this little system at least every 2 weeks to the tune of $60. It's not a killer, but it costs him. I've had the water tested. It's fine. It's healthy to drink, but it just doesn't. Just a lot of particulate, a lot of smell to it. There have been many developers, realtors, I'm a realtor, that have come down there, came through our office with wide eyes of greed and development and condos, et cetera, high-density development. But a lot of impediments to that. One thing that was an impediment was the inventory tax in the town of Easton. We didn't want to move out of the county. We like being out of the county. We needed to be there. The oil terminal was there. We were on the water. Barges brought oil in. There were 4 or 5 oil companies around there. The asphalt plant. It was a very active place. Everyone needed to be there. Not really the case anymore. We've got some cooperation of folks that are willing to let go and have things move forward. So we're all for that.
Pete Lesher, 215 South Hanson Street, and a member of the Easton Town Council. You have our well-reasoned letter laying out, I think, reasons that I hope allay your concerns for this. You've heard from Mr. Showalter on behalf of the property owners why we really need to go forward with this waiver at this time so as not to risk this once in decade, first ever opportunity to annex part of Easton Point, a vision that has been around for 40 or 50 years. That has been part of our comprehensive plan, and I think the county's vision for the redevelopment of Easton Point for a very long time. This is your opportunity to facilitate that. You've heard from the business owners for their visions, their dreams for this place, all of which are consistent with your vision for what, draft though it may be, for what Easton Point should become. You've been around the table, you've been partners with us, and I thank you for that. In the consideration of the small area plan. It's your plan as well as our plan, and I look forward to your help in helping us move forward with that plan. We really can't afford to let this opportunity fall apart, and I sense that although you are doing your due diligence, you are asking your hard questions, and that is absolutely appropriate, that I have the confidence that in the end you see the value of this both for the business owners who are coming to us and asking for this at this point, and the value to us as government in seeing this investment in our community that this waiver will facilitate. So I look forward to your support on this, and thank you very much for the time.
Thanks, Pete.
My name is Matt Pluta. I work as the Chop Tank River Keeper. I brought you some water quality data over the past 5 years. And this was taken from a sampling site located right off of Easton Point. And what we have here is information describing dissolved oxygen for the past 5 years within the water, Secchi depth, which is another way to measure clarity, total nitrogen and total phosphorus, which are, of course, nutrients of concern for our waters here. And I'm not here in support of development. Hopefully I'll never be up here in front of you guys in support of development. What I am here in support of is providing an opportunity to help clean up our rivers. And as you've heard over and over again, getting some of these properties onto sewer line and into the water infrastructure will alleviate some of the impact that failing septic systems have on this water quality. You can see our total nitrogen levels are way above the natural levels of which we should be seeing in our water. Also, if you looked at dissolved oxygen levels, for the majority of our sampling season between June and September, the dissolved oxygen levels are below our stress limit, meaning that fish and other aquatic species may not come up here. And then even looking farther into that, a lot of these samples are below the failing limit, meaning that they won't come up here and they won't inhabit this area. And then also with the clarity, we all know last year was a good clarity year. Everybody's seen it. But if you look at overall the past 3 or 4 years, we've got poor water clarity in here. And just to emphasize another point, another opportunity that these property owners will have is to embrace on-site stormwater management. So I visit Easton Point at least daily, try to get down there and see the river. And I was there on Saturday during the heavy rains, and one thing I noticed was about halfway down Easton Point started a stream along the road. And as that water started rushing closer to the river, and more of the properties, the water started coming off that, and the stream got a little bigger, and it just went right off the ramp and right into the river and carried every bit of sediment that it could along with it. And so when you look at water clarity levels of below 2 feet, sometimes less than 1 foot of clarity, we can help manage that right on site of some of these properties. And so I'm here asking you today to help clean up our rivers and give these property owners an opportunity to also do that.
I'm Joan Cox, and I live in Londonderry on Port Street. And you have a lot of Londonderry people here who have become interested and concerned. And I heard what Pete Lesher said about grabbing the opportunity that has come to us for the first time in 50 years. Now, if you don't waive the hold, you're the ones who are holding that up. And let's see what the hell's going to happen with all this. I'm not going to be around 50 years from now, believe you me. But I think the bulk of the people in Londonderry are very concerned with what you're planning to do. Thank you.
Thank you. What I'm going to do is just close this portion of the public hearing. Council, what I'll do, if there's no objection, is to leave this open until, in case there's anything that needs to be sent in to us. We have a lot of material here to look over. We'll leave it open until this coming Friday, in case anyone has any additional information they want to mail in to us, or they couldn't make it tonight. You can email it in to us or send it in to us, and that way we'll have all that to consider to make a decision on. So we're going to leave it open until this coming Friday. So if you have any additional information you want to send in to us, do so. We have some information that was presented to us we want to consider. Do you have that in a smaller version, sir?
I have a rolled-up plan.
Okay, you want to leave that with us as well, so we can take a look at that as well and consider your plans as well, so we appreciate that as well. So we'll hold on to that as well to make our, to review. Anything further? Okay, we're going to suspend the public hearing, I should say, until this coming Friday.